Well, I took my basic training to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, home of the Airborne, where they told us that you're at Fort Bragg, home of the Airborne, you run everywhere you go, which was true. The big sign out front of Fort Bragg says the more, or a statue that says on it is a plaque that says the more you sweat in peacetime, the less you bleed in war. I think they believe that, but I think that's a good idea. You need to be prepared in whatever you're going to do. I also, after leaving there, I was stationed at Fort Myer, Virginia, home of the Old Guard, in Arlington, Virginia. It's across the river. You look across south from Fort Myer and you see the city of D.C. And it's also Arlington National Cemetery. That's where I took my training. I was at some other Army posts. I was at Fort MacArthur in San Pedro, California, or San Pedro, whichever way. I was also did some camps and things at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. That's about that. On some other bases for other type things, but that's about it. I enlisted just right before I was going to be drafted. I really wasn't too interested in going to the military, but I knew I was going to go. Everybody was going, it seemed like, at that time, and I thought I had a better chance if I enlisted of picking something, so I found a unit, that reserve unit, that had some openings. In fact, it had 8 openings. And when I went down to take the test, there were 16 guys to take it. Didn't sound too good for me, but anyway, took the test, and I made it. I was able to get in. That's how I wound up in the military. The unit was the 318th MI, Military Intelligence. It was listed as a male censorship unit, but it did more than that. I really liked being in the MI unit. It was the first day they told us, this is not like the movies, and you're not James Bond. And I found out it's tedious work, that you gather information, you disseminate the information, you give the information to the people that need the information. It's gathering information, it's looking at things, and I like that. I like doing research. I don't know whether I did before I went into an MI unit, but I certainly do now, and it taught me how to do it pretty good. So I know how to do it. I also had training in mail censorship, and I had training in intelligence analysts. It's when you look at the information and try to disseminate or figure out what it means. It's very important. The job saves lives. It's what it does. The Peace March in Washington, D.C. in 1967, I was at Fort Myer. I was on base. Of course, I wasn't part of the protest or anything, but I saw the protest. I took some pictures that I have of the march. There was quite a few people there. And I was trying to get a little too close to the fence, and the MPs told me to move away, so I did, to another spot on the fence, and told by another MP to move away. And the third time, an MP major impressed upon me the fact that I didn't need to be where I was, that I needed to be elsewhere. So I went back. It was interesting to see the protest there. There was interesting. I hadn't been on active very long at that time, and later on, I became like an awful lot of people. A lot of the people I knew that was in the military opposed to the war in Vietnam. It seemed like a lot of the country became that way, and I know some people that didn't come back. It was a tough time. Uh, my wing sergeant, Special Forces, was going to a unit in Vietnam that had 80% casualties normally. Good friend of mine was shipping out as soon as he graduated from language school to Vietnam. It was a bad time. We sat with a guy one night in a room that was being redeployed to Nam, and he said, "I'm not going back," and he was crying. And the only way we could stop, he said, "I'm going on over to D.C. and do whatever I can to keep from going back." And the only way we could stop him was physically restrain him. But he got away and he went to D.C. Never saw him again. Know what happened. That was a bad time. It was a bad time. I feel bad that other men did my job. I really do. I did what the Army wanted me to do. I went where they told me. I did what they said. I didn't volunteer to go over there. I feel bad that other guys went and I didn't. I consider myself a coward. And I have no respect for myself because of that. I know a lot of the other guys didn't. I didn't feel that way when I joined up, but I spent. There was 250 something guys in the language school there where I was, and almost all of them were RAs, was regular Army, and a lot of them had volunteered for a longer time. They said to hopefully Vietnam would be over before they had to go. I know there was a lot of guys that wanted to go. I know a lot of guys that didn't want to go. My good friend, he didn't want to go, but he had to go. But these young men did what they said, and then people treated them awful when they came back. These people should be ashamed of what they did to them. I'm not a military person. There was a lot of things about the military I didn't like. But I liked being in military intelligence. I'm not intelligent. I think that probably to get in the unit, you had to make a much higher score than getting in the regular Army. I've always thought that I lucked out and guessed good on a lot of the questions because I don't consider myself an intelligent person. Some of the other guys in the unit were very intelligent people. It was interesting to be with them because I know there was 2 lawyers in my unit, and they were intelligent. So I think I guessed right.